Welcome back to Your Town and the Arts are the Answer. And today we are very much focused on music education, and in the context of the Music for All Monterey County campaign, in which we are asking people, we're asking you, we're asking everyone, to write a letter to your school board. Just go to artsformc.org/music and you will find out exactly how to do that. And what we see is that just a few minutes of your time is going to make the difference for our kids for their whole lifetime. And here to help me tell that story is Cathy Finley. Cathy, thank you so much for being here. It's really, really great to have you. Cathy is an music educator, and she has been involved in all the best music that's happened in our area for a long time in so many ways. And also she is part of our team as the central representative of the Central Coast section of California Music Educators. And so she has great perspective on all the issues, all the possibilities. It's a new day, but it's not over yet to actually make things available for every student everywhere. And thanks so much, Cathy.
Well, thank you. I enjoy being here, and I enjoy your advocacy of music education, because that's what music rocks.
And so, Cathy, tell us more about why is music so important? You've been in the schools for a very long time, and you really could see over time what difference it made to have good support, to have regular classes. Can you tell us a little bit about your own experience?
My own experience is when I first got into, I was doing a substitute teaching job to pay back some college bills I racked up for my music education. And they had started a music program. This was in Southern California. And so everybody said, "Oh, Cathy, you're so good at music. Why don't you do it?" And so, and so I started teaching music with what I could find. And at that particular school, it was 8 auto harps and an assortment of rhythm sticks.
You start where you start.
You start where you start. And then I continued on. I taught junior high, which there aren't very many junior highs anymore, but that's okay. And then I was still studying voice, so I I took a year off to really study voice, or 2 years off to really do that, and inter contests and all of those fun things that you do when you like music. And I worked at a private school, and then I got married and moved to this area.
But we're so lucky with that one.
Here's the deal, is that when I was first hired in Monterey Peninsula Unified School District, they had just received a Packard grant, which was great for music education and for science education, both really needed.
And is that to develop curriculum or to have more hours?
We were hired as teachers, but we also wrote curriculum. And got the whole, got the thing started. And when we first sat down at our first meeting, there were 8 of us at the time, to write curriculum. We all just kind of sat there and looked at each other and felt blessed. And because we, as I said, I'd been through a thing where I forgot to tell you, I taught music, was hired for two years as a music educator, and then they cut the program in that district in Los Angeles. So, and we had, all of us were in our, late 20s, 30s, and maybe early 40s, this range of women, and men too. And we looked at each other and we said, "Isn't this great? Can you imagine we're doing this?" And they've got the grant for a few years. And then the next thing was, how long do you think this is going to last?
Right. It seems so tentative even then, huh?
Even then. And I can remember one of the women saying, "If it lasts for 5 years, we'll consider it lucky." But it did. We went on. The district was very, very supportive, which was really great. And then things started to dry up. In the early 90s, mid 90s. And by that time, I had gone on to Monterey High teaching choral music. And so, but all the music education in elementary school dried up.
In the 2000s or late
90s? Starting in the late 90s, and then the 2000s. I mean, it weaned itself down to, or whittled itself down. And I can remember, going to the board meeting with some of the other high school teachers and showing Robbie Stang, who was at Monterey High, brought in a potted plant, and it was in full bloom. And everyone loves the beautiful flowers.
Yeah.
They love the marching band. They love the jazz. They love
high profile, high volume.
Yes, this is what gets you going. You know, we love that full orchestral sound. But in a plant, if you cut off the roots, eventually those blossoms die.
Yeah.
And that's kind of what happened. All the music programs got smaller and smaller because we didn't have kids in the pipeline coming up, and so it was getting to be very depressing in the 2000s.
So what's exciting to me, that was a very difficult time, you know, all up until really just the last couple of years.
Exactly.
One of the reasons we're running this Music for All Monterey County campaign is that we saw a couple of years ago that particularly in California, there was more flexibility for the curriculum, and then there was more money, which is even more shocking.
Exactly. Yeah, the LCAP. It's been a law in California since 1995 that music education be given to K-6 and offered in 7-12.
But it just wasn't honored.
Exactly. Because
I don't know how that happened, but it was really so devastating, I remember at the time, and so exciting now to see. I mean, we're seeing, the Arts Council is seeing in various districts throughout the county more interest, more demand. But much like your plant idea is that our collective interest for the whole campaign, and why you came into our group, I think, is that we were just talking with Colleen a few minutes ago from the Jazz Festival about how important it is to not rely on luck quite so much.
Exactly. Sustainable funding is what we are always wanting, and
pervasive. So every student, not just a few here, a few there,
exactly.
somewhere else.
And that's the other issue is we have several music boards in various schools: elementary, middle school, high school, preschool, where parents will get together and they'll fund it and so forth. We call that supplanting. The district. That's supplanting. Or we want it to be supplemental, not to take the place of district funding.
Oh, yes.
So if the district funds everybody, then if you want to do something above and beyond, that's cool. That's supplementing. But it's not taking away the responsibility of the district's curriculum.
It's also a capacity issue, isn't it? So if a PTA 1 year or another year can, let's say, fund musical instruments or something like that, then the next year is that same PTA going to still do that?
Right.
And if they have the musical instruments but there's no classes, is there, what are you going to do? So having that really the infrastructure, can we say?
Yeah, the infrastructure
is so critical. Yeah. And one of the things that we were just talking about too is the irony is that all those supplemental things, once the baseline is provided for every kid, more of the community groups, more donors, more parents have something to get involved in.
Yes. And I must say that the community has been really supportive. Even when even when I was teaching and we were going through the doldrums, and there just wasn't talk of it. Various civic groups would ask us to perform, and and sometimes they'd give us lunch, sometimes they'd give $50 or something like that. But just we would get out in the schools. Get out of the school as much as possible. And there were several people that would just always call, can you do our Christmas thing? Can you, we've got luncheons coming up in the spring.
Isn't that great?
Yeah. And so our kids, because that's really important for the kids to get a chance to show other than just their parents and their fellow students what they're doing and what they're proud of. And that's one of the, and it gets, breaks down that fear factor and all of that kind of stuff. Music education, it touches on the whole human being. And the other thing that we can always do, we want to, there are a couple of things. One thing is that we always want sequential learning. And that's the thing that we're really working on as music educators now, is getting teachers in every school, getting, and you're and Music for All, of course, is part of that crowd. I've got my Stand Up for Music button. And is that we get sequential learning in all of the schools.
And can you pause for a second and talk about what is sequential learning? Why is that important?
Okay, so that goes from one level to another. It's not bringing in a dog and pony show. It's not saying, hey kids, we're going to have an assembly once a month and we're all going to sing, whatever song they're going to sing. Or it's not bringing in somebody for a month to do a play. Not that there's anything wrong with that.
It's all good.
That's all good, but once again, that's supplemental. That's not supplanting. The thing that we can do, even if there isn't a music teacher, is provide inspiration and ideas for classroom music teachers, especially in elementary, in all ages.
Sure.
So if you're in a physics class and you're talking about acceleration, maybe you want to play the Hall of the Mountain King, which gets hit faster and faster and faster and faster. Or if you're studying slavery or something, there's a wonderful song about Harriet Tubman, and you can bring that in. And of course, all of the patriotic music that there is, and studying this. So there's a lot of history. Of course, I'm partial to vocal music, but that doesn't mean that if you're talking about Napoleon and his invasion of Austria, you can't play Haydn's Mass in Time of War, which has the timpani playing the cannons in the background. And it was so pervasive, the war on their mind, that it's in the symphony. Things like that are, you just need to help. I think that's also the other thing is for music teachers to help, and art teachers, dance teachers, whoever, to enhance what's going on in the classroom.
And it works the whole brain in so many different ways. So can you share a little bit more about what is happening with the California music educators, and what do they see as next steps if your whole association could talk to the likes of us and say, hey, do this, what would they have us do?
Well, the first thing that we did was 2 years finally get the standards passed for all the visual and performing arts, and that was a series of several advocacy days and adopting or modifying the national standards.
And people can even see those online, right?
Yes, and that was a whole other thing. That was last year's deal.
To get it online.
To get it online, because they had to budget some, like $1 billion or something.
I know, it sounds so easy, but just put it online.
Yeah. And for all of that stuff. So that was the next thing. Now we just had Advocacy Day last week.
How did it go?
It went really well. It's so much fun to talk to the legislators, and
that's how you know it's a new day. I have to just tell you that right now.
Yeah,
because it feels good now.
Yeah, it does. It does feel good. But most of them were in session when we had our time frame, so we talked to their education coordinators and so forth. And the first thing we did was thank them for the standards. Yay, we've got those. And you feel really fresh when you've got new stuff and you're into everything. Progress. And it's not just, here's the other thing, we're not just talking about chorus band and orchestra and jazz band. We're also talking about electronic music and technology, and we're also talking about mariachi band, and we're talking about bluegrass, and we're talking about all of these things that are now part of. There was a great group that was playing with steel band.
Oh.
Junior high group.
That's my next life, steel drumming.
Yeah. Well, with the hammered dulcimer, you can just, morph right into that. But our main thing was just to keep a presence and say, now we want accountability. We want to know that there is music going on in every school because, as we said, since 1995, it's been a law. They're two separate parts of the Ed Code. I have their numbers down if you really want to know what they are. So is there music going? Is there a teacher? Is there a dedicated thing happening? How much? And then the other issue is how much time.
Yes, right, of course, yeah.
Yeah, and so for some schools, it may be somebody, if it's a one-room schoolhouse or a rural schoolhouse, some people may be getting someone that comes in one day a month or something like that. And we know it's difficult. One of the most difficult things right now is finding enough teachers.
That is, well, the pipeline was shattered.
Yep.
When I came in 2004, people were calling me and saying, I can't stand this, I have to get out, or I'm just destitute because I was just kicked out. There was just like so many tears shed during that period.
Yeah.
And so how are new teachers ever going to emerge, you know, through all that time? So now all of a sudden, teacher shortage is real.
Yeah.
So what is the association doing to fast track that onboarding of new teachers?
There's a lot of work going on with on the state level and on the national level with various colleges.
That's really good to hear.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And the other thing is that our organization, California Music Educators, which is part of the National Association for Music Education, it's a big thing.
That's fine, it's all there.
Yeah, it's all there. Is we have mentors. So, for instance,
oh, great.
Yeah, so
great,
we
great.
have people that have signed up to be mentors, and then for new teachers to work with. But and let me tell you, I'm getting lots of calls. I retired a couple years ago, and I get calls all the time. Sort of, kind of, right?
You're being pulled back.
Yeah.
I bet you. I was thinking of that. I was thinking of all the people who retired early back in the day, because what are they going to do now? And so if they weren't kicked out, they retired early. And I was thinking, I bet there's some people being reeled back in.
There are a lot of people that are being reeled back in for very, maybe not full time, but
right,
part time.
Right.
And that's been another issue, is because first of all, there weren't jobs for music teachers. So even a fine musician or an educator who was really super interested in music or other visual and performing arts, well, there's no job for me. Why should I do it?
Right.
Okay, so now there's a push to let's move them along. Yeah. And I talk to my friends who are mentors to student teachers at Cal State Monterey Bay.
Yes.
And I say, if you find somebody who plays an instrument, who's always been involved in music, just kind of nudge them there to say, hey, you might want to take that CBS test for music too.
Definitely. So this is again why it's important not to have, everybody has to do whatever they can, wherever they can, and that's fine. But why there's a super high value in having that full infrastructure, every kid taken care of, because then you can build that pipeline, you can grow that pipeline, and the whole ecosystem is there, and there for the next group of kids and the next group of kids, and then they become the educators. That's the way it's supposed to work, and that's certainly our vision. And I'm just really grateful that you're here today to talk about that, and also really grateful that you're on that team for the Music for All Monterey County. So thanks so much for being with us today.